Hey, this soup for breakfast doesn't taste great. It's too watery. Why is it like this? Yeah, it's not that good. Can you make it thicker? But remember, I need to be careful with salt, as the doctor said. Who cares about that? I really like strong flavors. The one who always complains about food is my mother-in-law, Mel. She always wants food with lots of seasoning, but she's overweight and has almost diabetes. Her doctor warned her, but she doesn't seem to care and adds extra seasoning to everything I cook. I was shocked by how much salt and pepper she added to the soup I'd made carefully. Even though I use salt and seasonings with less salt, it seems like it's never enough for her. I worry she might get really sick if she keeps eating like this. Honestly, I wouldn't be too upset if something happened to her. Mil seems to enjoy making things difficult for me. She's always complaining and being mean. My name's Alice, I'm 29 years old, and I work while also taking care of the house. I've been married for 3 years, but we don't have any kids. The problem is that I can't have children, and Mil never lets me forget it. You're worthless as a woman if you can't have children. You're broken, she'd say. You should be thankful just to be allowed in this house. You're right, I am broken because we've tried so many times, and I can't have kids. Talk about getting a bad deal. Ha, how can you say that? My husband laughed. Well, because a woman who can't have kids is done for, Mil added. You're right, Mom, my husband agreed. That I'm broken. I really want a baby. I've been going to the doctor while working, trying everything, but nothing's working. It's exhausting both physically and emotionally. So I've decided to stop the treatment. It's also expensive, and it's hard to keep going for years. My husband used to say spending money on fertility treatments was pointless. But he also pushed me to get pregnant quickly. Why bother pressuring me? I can't get pregnant just because you want me to, I thought to myself. After giving up on treatments, I thought about being happy with just my husband and me. But my mother-in-law still hoped for a grandchild to tease me about. She even bought diapers and proudly showed them off. Look, I got diapers, she said excitedly. You'll need them one day. Haha, aren't those a bit small for you, Mel? I joked back. Haha, hey, these are for a baby, can't you see that? She replied. Well, I wouldn't know. I'm the broken woman who can't have kids, I retorted sarcastically. That's enough. Angrily, my mother-in-law stormed off to her room. Thank goodness, I thought, already tired from work and not wanting to deal with her mean comments anymore. It seems like she has nothing better to do than make my life miserable. We moved in with my in-laws after my father-in-law passed away a year ago. My mother-in-law was heartbroken. Then, around the same time, she was warned by her doctor about her risk of diabetes. That's why we moved in. My husband wanted to support his mom, but despite having diabetes, she's okay as long as she takes her medication and eats well. There's nothing to worry about, well, except that she often forgets her meds and eats whatever she wants. So her condition might worsen eventually. Even if that happens, I really don't want to be responsible for taking care of my mother-in-law. I'm still working and really busy. Taking care of in-laws in my 20s? No thanks. The next day was my day off, so I was doing chores around the house. My mother-in-law, who usually just sits on the sofa snacking, suddenly got up and went into my room. I didn't want her in there, but my hands were full, so I didn't say anything. I cleaned your room for you, she said. Thanks, I replied, feeling suspicious. Maybe I should switch rooms with my husband. You know, if you leave your room messy, you'll attract bugs, she chuckled. Sure, enjoy your clean room, I replied, feeling unsure about her intentions. My mother-in-law seemed to think I was grateful, which only made her behavior more suspicious. I had a feeling she was up to something. That night, I decided to sleep in my husband's room. He'd been away on business since yesterday, so he wouldn't know. Even if he finds out, I knew he wouldn't be upset. So, I made my choice. I work as a nurse with regular hours, so we have separate bedrooms. Part of it is because our relationship has cooled off. But mostly it's because I don't want to disturb him when I work night shifts. I waited until my mother-in-law went to her room, then I went to my husband's room. Okay, she's in her room, time for me to get some sleep too, I thought. And so, I ended up sleeping in my husband's room for 2 days. My mother-in-law started to get suspicious because I seemed too happy. She began asking strange questions. Are you sure you're not feeling any discomfort or anything? She asked. What do you mean? I replied, avoiding her gaze. Oh, never mind, she said, dropping the subject. Was there something she was wondering about? Avoiding eye contact, my mother-in-law ate her meal alone. I had the night shift that day, so I planned to relax at home before heading to work. But relaxing isn't really an option for me since my mother-in-law never helps around the house. She enjoys telling me what to do while she sits on the couch, eating snacks and reading Japanese comics for women. She's probably reading and plotting her next move to make her annoying daughter-in-law upset. I glanced at the cover of her comic. It was titled Epic Mother and Daughter-in-Law Swamp Battle in English. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her choice of reading material. Eventually, my husband returned from his business trip, but it was already 10 p.m. GH. I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a bath, he said. Sure, I'll heat it up for you. Have a beer while you wait, I suggested. Thanks, I will. Oh wait, it's not safe to drink alcohol before taking a bath. Okay, I'll have a non-alcoholic beer then, he reluctantly agreed, listening to my advice about the dangers of mixing alcohol and hot water. You'd think he'd know better. Even saunas have signs warning against entering if you're drunk. But no, common sense isn't so common for him or my mother-in-law. After that, my husband took his bath and started singing loudly. We live in a single-family home, but singing at this hour, our neighbors won't be pleased. La 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 la. Hey, you're too loud, I said. Shut it. You're the one being loud, he retorted. I quietly warned him to stop singing, but then my mother-in-law came into the bathroom area to join in. Watkin is just trying to enjoy himself singing. What's wrong with that? She said. What? You really don't know how to treat your husband, do you? Always so inconsiderate and complaining, my mother-in-law scolded me. Hey, I'm not the one always complaining, Mill, I replied. Talking back, huh? You're definitely not cute. Not that you're a beauty to begin with, she sneered. That's okay with me. I probably look like a knockout beauty in some other country, no worries, haha. After that, my husband got out of the bath and started drinking. It was already 10:30 p.m., and I needed to leave for the hospital where I work. Even though it's close by, there's a lot to do, so I have to leave early. Oh, by the way, I've been sleeping in your room. Would you mind sleeping in mine tonight? My clothes are all over, I mentioned to my husband. Sorry, sure. Doesn't matter to me, he replied. Okay, I'm heading out then. Take care, I whispered to my husband so Mill wouldn't hear. Just as I was about to grab my bag and leave, I heard my husband let out a loud groan. What? Watkin. He was curled up on the floor, holding onto his leg and moaning. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. Mill's face turned pale, and she started to panic. What's happening? Speak, she demanded. He couldn't say a word, no matter what I asked. There was no response. I felt like I needed to do something, but then I noticed something strange. The floor was unusually slippery. Even though I was wearing socks, it felt like I could easily fall. What on earth is this? I exclaimed. Watkin, Mill, what did you do? I didn't do anything. It's not my fault, Mill protested. Blaming my mother-in-law wouldn't solve anything at that moment, so I immediately called an ambulance. My husband was taken straight to our hospital, and work was the last thing on my mind. Even after we arrived, he kept clutching his leg, visibly sweating in pain. It hurts so bad, Watkin. Hang in there, please, I pleaded. Thankfully, a doctor was able to examine him, and he seemed a bit relieved. His leg was indeed broken, just as we suspected. It was a 5th metatarsal fracture, which made sense given how he slipped on that slick floor. His foot was visibly swollen. Usually, people get this kind of fracture by tripping or putting too much weight on it. Speaking from my own experience, I twisted my ankle falling downstairs years ago. I heard a loud snap, and the pain was unbearable. I was also diagnosed with a 5th metatarsal fracture. I was lost in music while walking downstairs, so it was quite embarrassing. I even lied to my close friends about it. Since his fracture didn't need hospitalization, my husband could come home. I was supposed to work a night shift, but my nursing supervisor insisted that I take the night off. It wasn't life-threatening, but I guess she was genuinely worried. I survived, but now I've got a fever, my husband remarked. Well, you broke your leg, so getting a fever isn't surprising. But why was the floor so slippery? Maybe we should ask Mill about that, huh? I suggested. Hey, what did you do to the floor in the room? I confronted Mill. Well, the floor was slippery. That's why I slipped and fell. I could have seriously hurt myself, my husband interjected. That room is for my daughter-in-law, so I greased the floor. What? I was hoping she would slip, so I put a lot of grease on the floor. I never expected you to go in there and slip, Mill confessed. Unbelievable, I exclaimed. It turns out my mother-in-law intentionally greased the floor to make me fall. She had claimed to have cleaned the room, but her actual intention was to harm me. I'm furious. If I had entered that room, I could have been seriously injured. Breaking a leg would be the least of my worries. Hitting my head could have been fatal. My mother-in-law's actions are practically criminal. You're despicable. You're not even family to me anymore. I got seriously hurt because of you. I'm going to the police, I declared. Wait a minute. I didn't directly cause any harm, did I? Your wife is the one to blame. She told you to enter her room, didn't she? So this is all her fault, Mel retorted. Shut up. That's not the point. You're getting arrested. My husband furiously dialed the police. My mother-in-law tried to snatch the phone away but couldn't overpower him, even with a broken leg. My husband was desperately holding onto his phone, talking to the police. I couldn't help but wish I was at work, or even at the hospital, instead of dealing with this mess. Neighbors will eventually hear about this horrifying situation. Since she almost injured me too, maybe I should also involve the police. We don't know for sure, but she might be charged with attempted harm. Wait now. I don't want to go to the police, Mel protested. Really? You knew the risks when you did this, or did you think you could just make me disappear from this world? I snapped. Well, I did think it would be better if you just disappeared. Wow, you're the worst. Your mindset is criminal. Personally, I wish you'd just stay in jail forever, Mel sneered. Let's get a divorce, I declared. What? I can't keep living like this. If I stay in this house, I might actually be in danger one day. I'm too scared to live with that. Plus, I can't tolerate your lack of morals anymore, I explained. Wait, please don't say we'll divorce over this, my husband pleaded. Over this? You belittled me, called me defective. Do you even realize how much that hurts? I can manage without you just fine, I stated firmly. No, I need you. I was depending on your income. I even signed a new car contract. I finally got the Toyota Century I've always wanted from Japan. My husband protested. I don't care anymore, I said, feeling determined. I managed to clean the slimy floor and quickly packed my belongings into a bag. I stuffed more into my carry-on, took off my wedding ring, and placed it on the table. While searching through a shelf full of dishes, I thought about bringing the divorce papers. Ah, found it. The divorce papers you wrote before. Remember how you wrote that if I can't have a child within 2 years, we divorce? Thanks. I can't have children now, so let's divorce, I declared, holding the papers in my hand. You must feel relieved now, I added. Wait, what about the loan for my Century? My husband asked. Who cares? I replied dismissively. I left the house and went straight to the hospital. The compassionate charge nurse didn't ask many questions when I showed up. She seemed to understand I had my reasons. Being a nurse, I can support myself without relying on a husband. I wondered why I endured being treated poorly by my in-laws, enduring their mean comments. The whole situation felt ridiculous, so I decided to focus solely on my job and stop dwelling on it. The next morning, I filed for divorce, and he's now my ex-husband. Given the emotional pain he caused me, I consulted a lawyer about getting compensation. In the end, my ex-husband had to pay me, and I couldn't help but think serves you right. Since the police got involved, it seems the neighbors have been avoiding my mother-in-law because she blabbed about why my ex-husband broke his bone. Everyone thinks she's a terrible parent, which is understandable. My ex-husband no longer wants anything to do with her and seems to have kicked her out. Though there is some kind of survivor's benefit program, it doesn't pay much. She's been crying that living alone is impossible. She loves to eat, and because of her, our grocery bills were outrageous, so living on just the survivor's benefit would mean a very modest lifestyle. As for my ex-husband, I don't care what happens to him anymore. He mentioned something about taking out a car loan, but I have no idea what happened with that. I assumed he wouldn't be able to afford it on his salary. He took me for granted and thought I would contribute money too, which annoyed me so much. Even though he's not particularly wealthy, he's the type to buy a new car without thinking. Later, I started dating a doctor at the hospital, and 2 years after that, we got married and were blessed with a child, which felt like a miracle after all I'd been through. From now on, I'm committed to doing my best for my family.